Is there still space to build a startup in the Ayurveda space?
It's a very good time for Ayurveda. I think persistence है, market बन रहा है. अगले 3 साल में informed, educated founders who make educated content for people who want to get educated will be the ones who do.
Ayurveda takes a lot of time to show results, which means it works on the root cause, but it is slow.
People have this conception that Ayurvedic products are very boring. There should always be a scope to innovate in terms of formulations and also the narratives.
Trust in Ayurveda is not a problem. Trust in the brand is a problem.
Yes.
Which is the responsibility of the brand.
At least we in India, we don't have that trust deficit. I think that's a myth that Ayurveda is written in stone. We are a civilization of seekers, and every body of science in the Vedic context is always open to discussion, interpretation.
There is always constant fight between Ayurveda and modern medicine. But we don't need to do that. We need to just pick up the best of both and combine and give the best results to the patient.
It's a blue ocean. कभी market खत्म नहीं होगी इसकी, and it's keep on increasing.
The wellness category is getting increasingly crowded. How is it relevant today?
Let's find out on today's show of Startup Table with AJ.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Startup Table with AJ. AJ being me, Archana Jahagirdar, and I'm the founder of Rukam Capital, and we invest behind early stage founders. And today we are going to be talking about Ayurveda. Ayurveda, as we all know, is an ancient science. It's been there for millennials. And the question really is there still space to build a startup in the Ayurveda space? The wellness category is getting increasingly crowded, it is with a lot of other categories. So I'm going to request the founders at this table to explain to me, why are they building in Ayurveda? How is it relevant today for today's consumer? And are there myths they need to bust for their consumers? Or is it a well understood science? So I request each one of you to introduce yourself and your startup in a brief sort of way. I'll request you to start.
Hi AJ, this is Sunitha. I'm the co-founder of TEFTY. We are in the beauty and the personal care space in Ayurveda, and we are building products that are based on a concept called Dinacharya in Ayurveda, which is the OG of self-care rituals. And we are here to simplify and declutter your existing skincare routines.
Hi AJ, I am Abhay. I'm the founder of Muditam Ayurveda. I belong from a 120 years old legacy in the field of Ayurveda. I'm building right now a brand around diabetes management. So I saw Ayurveda is quite slow in results. It takes a lot of time and it is quite bitter in taste. So I modernize it with new type of strategies and techniques and have supplements around it to solve diabetes management in India.
Hi, I'm Abhishek, Gagneja, founder of GOODVEDA. We are taking a holistic approach. We are incorporating Ayurveda along with modern medicine as well as lifestyle intervention for chronic illness. I firmly believe, like my fellow founder mentioned, that Ayurveda is slow. But if you add science as well as lifestyle changes to it, the results can be very, very fast and profound. And as we are in chronic illness, we are aiming for complete remission, not just management. And that's what makes us stand apart.
Right.
Hi, my name is Vivek. I'm the founder and CEO at Rukam. So we are a men's wellness Ayurveda brand. We started as a men's sexual wellness Ayurveda brand, predominantly working on a science called Vajikarna. The thesis was to bring safe and effective nutraceuticals and Ayurvedic products to men who are facing disorders and not able to talk about it. In the last 3 years, we've diversified to other problems men are facing, which is anxiety, stress, and immunity predominantly. We do a very modern format of Ayurveda, which is sublingual drops. So we make drops that are fast acting and have higher bioactive compounds and have been scaling since the last 3 years.
Hi, I'm Ekta, a co-founder for Vedena Food. We are a tech-enabled, AI-driven Vedic knowledge ecosystem for wellness. Based on 9+ years of research, we started with a deep understanding that today we are very well-fed but an undernourished generation. And it's not just countries like India, even the developed world like US, UK, Australia is on the verge of a major health crisis. Despite protein-rich diets. So at Vedana, we don't see food as carbs, protein, and fat. Vedic concepts of food are around diversity, geography, seasonality, and your unique body type. So how do you access that knowledge? Not everybody speaks Sanskrit, not everybody has the time to decipher the scriptures. So we are here to access that knowledge and deliver it to the world in a manner that is personal, possible, and practical with transformative results.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Kapil Dhamijan. I am co-founder of Do Nectar Contemporary Ayurveda. We want to make Ayurveda great again. So we sell glamorous and sensuous products which are effective. And with our products, we want to see Ayurveda trending not only in India, but also in Korea and other countries.
If I could just take one takeaway from what I think most of you have said is there is an element of modernizing Ayurveda, but my understanding of Ayurveda is that you have to be you have to stick to what has already been codified in Ayurveda. So when you guys are talking about modernizing it or adding science, I mean Ayurveda by itself is a science. So then are you still being true to Ayurveda? Anybody can answer that.
So I think that's a myth that Ayurveda is written in stone. We are a civilization of seekers, and every body of science in the Vedic context is always open to discussion, interpretation, alternative ideas, and even in Ayurveda, if you today, because we are an over-informed visual space today, everybody is speaking about Ayurvedic practices. If you listen to 3 different channels, 3 will tell you different things about the same body type, food habits, or even the seasonality. So that is why I think in our context, the idea is obviously at the end of the day, your mind, you have to use your mind, you have to have a trusted person, who has done enough research. But there's always an openness towards research and fresh ideas. So I think that's one of the greatest myths that we have. You were absolutely right in the beginning that there is so much myth that needs to be, broken around our Vedic sciences before we can even start a conversation around that.
I would like to add to this. So Ayurvedic ingredients also have something scientifically proven in the back. For example, amla must have some scientific ingredient which helps to improve the hair health. So instead of making a product out of pure amla, we can extract that active component and then create a product. Now this product is modernized because we are using the active part of it and it is 100% more effective. So the essence of Ayurveda remains with the modernization. So I don't feel that it impacts and lower down the efficacy and results.
So
I have a
would like
different
to-
point of view where, I would say authentic and traditional practices should be followed while you are processing and making a product because that creates it more effective. And adding modern science and nutrition part along with it just amplifies the results. Like we are not completely Ayurveda brand. We have products which are Ayurvedic. We have products which are based on nutrition science, and we are also adding lifestyle intervention because that's what we need. We need to target root cause for chronic illness, and it requires holistic approach. You can't just stick to one method. And which this is why, because modern medicine or traditional medicine starts questioning effectiveness and authenticity of Ayurveda. Say it's not effective, we are using so many metals, heavy metals in the product, and it's causing severe damage to the organs. There is always constant fight between Ayurveda and modern medicine. But we don't need to do that. We need to just pick up the best of both and combine and give the best results to the patient.
Yeah, so what I personally in the brand have faced is, people have this conception that Ayurvedic products are very boring and they smell really awful. And here is where we need to innovate. And I think there should always be a scope to innovate in terms of formulations and also the narratives that we, put across in Ayurveda. Because now if you say it's your grandma's recipe, some of the sectors will buy it and the youngsters, preferably the Gen Zs, will not buy it. So what we are trying to do is, hey, ghee is good for you. It acts like ceramides, right? It's a natural ceramide. Why don't you try this product? So I think there should be an evolution in terms of how you, put across the narrative as well. Yeah.
Also, just to add to that, everything that we know in modern science is derived from three things. One is, so there were three books written when all of medicine started. One was the Modern Medica, which was written by Hippocrates, who's the father of modern medicine. The other was Bhavprakash Nigantu, which was written by our rishis, which is now being moderated and modernized and taught in schools. And then there was the traditional Chinese medicine. Any and everything that we know in allopathy has been taken out of that, right? For example, Mardhan is a small process in Ayurveda, which is now being used by allopathy, and there is a product which is very high in efficiency called liposomal delivery, which is out of that, where you combine certain fats with certain bioactive compounds and it changes the way the delivery system is done. Sublingual administration, for that matter, even allopathy uses sublingual administration for drugs that are life-saving. So it's just that pharmaceutical was marketed very well during a certain period of time, and there were illnesses, and fighting these illnesses were bigger problem back then. But then now is the time post COVID, when people have started accepting and going back to their roots. If you see, divinity is at all time high, Ayurveda is at all time high, because people saw a tragedy where they were not able to cope up with modern medicine, right? So I think whatever we've learned from Ayurveda is just a part of it, and a lot is yet to be explored. And as she very beautifully said, is that it is a science that is open to interpret, discuss and argue. And the higher purpose should be how to make this more efficient in the modern context than to compare it with products and features that are very performance driven that allopathy does. So that's pretty much it. I think that's my submission.
I think everything about life need not be science. So while I don't agree that Ayurveda is not science, let's assume for the timing if it is not science. I think nowadays we are living in the age of what is called cult of health over optimization. We want to measure everything, 10% vitamin C, because I'm a skincare, 2% retinol. These are clinical evidences that 2% retinol results in so and so. But there's a huge empirical evidence. What our dadi, nani, parents saw. Did they ever use a face wash and a body wash separately? No. Did they had a separate hair shampoo and whatever, wash separately? No. They had a very simple, basic rituals. Weren't their skin much better than what our skins today are? Why are we ignoring those empirical evidences and just chasing the health over optimization part? While I don't agree that Ayurveda is not science, but we have made it a faith-based practice. The Ayurveda word means science of living. It's a science. It's not a faith. It's the way we present it. But at the same time, to compare it exactly to say, let's not do a over optimization and say Ayurveda cannot match up exact pure science.
You were saying?
I was just trying to add, I totally agree with science. However, it lacks clinical data. That's why modern medicine or traditional medicine is able to question it. So, moment we start modernizing it, start doing more budget spending in clinical studies, we can just, it will be equivalent. And that's what we should aim for.
Okay. So, given that there's so many opinions on this table around modern and how you guys have all framed your startup positioning, so does the consumer need to be educated? Is there a trust deficit, or is it that people know and understand Ayurveda, but it's about getting the consumer's trust for your particular startups?
I guess too much information out there. WhatsApp information.
Is there trust or no trust?
So yeah, there has to be authentic sources of information. Government doing a great job in promoting Ayurveda, and similarly, we need more creators, more brands to talk about it and build trust in that, because we have seen online there's always fight among the doctors from modern medicine and Ayurveda. They say they're always pointing out this is bad with your practice, this is bad with your practice. So we need to come together, not just fight against each other.
No, I think with Ayurveda, trust is not an issue because people have seen it, we in India, we don't have that trust deficit. I think the issues are different. We have issues of complexity. People don't understand what is Ayurveda? There is so much of conversation around it. There's an issue with complexity. There's an issue with also over information which does not even apply to me. And then the difficulty. Sometimes, you know that, okay, this food is good for me, Ayurvedic, but then it is so bland. Then you are told that Sattvic food is only Ayurvedic, which is not the case. Vedic sciences define 50 different kinds of meat, which can be paired with 60 different kinds of wines, which are made of 75 different forms of fruits. This is our science. Now, when people get to know of it, they are shocked. Ayurveda is Sattvic, right? I have to eat like non-garlic, non-onion. So there is a lot of misinformation because Ayurveda now is a tool for marketing, just like wellness is. Everybody wants to use it for positioning. But how much of research, how much of real work have you done? How much experience is involved and how much of data have you picked up, in terms of performance? I think that's where we are lacking.
And just to add to that, as she rightly said, it's very vast, right? Every science is very vast. Homeopathy is so vast. Germany is doing amazing work in Ayurveda and homeopathy as we speak. Europe is doing brilliant in Ayurveda. US, it's trending. I'll just give you one small example. This brand called Indie Wild that has just come to India and it's killing it. I think there are two major problems with Ayurveda. The defense mechanism of brand owners because they're so sick and tired of hearing that it does not work. And the other is the communication strategy of the brand. We don't have to fight with performance. Niacinamide and all the X and Y's of the world that keep coming, trend and then go off. Melatonin, for that matter, became a rage, went off. ACV became a rage, went off. These are fed to us by Western markets. There's a lot of clutter, a lot of information out there, but that is going to be the case in a science which is so nascent. 70s ka pharmaceutical was like this only. When in early 50s, cigarettes started, there were two campaigns. One was there was dentist recommended cigarettes and the other was women should smoke because it shows liberalization of women, right? So there is always going to be positioning. There is always going to be communication. What we've got to make sure is, as brand owners, we need to exactly know what our strengths are. For example, at Sukham, we say our strength is sourcing. We have a network of 5,000 farmers where we source from. I have to stand with the farmer and make content and tell them that an ashwagandha harvested in 195 days and an ashwagandha harvested in 235 days have different properties because of the bioactive compounds like vithinoloids and vithiferins present in it. Now, if I communicate like this to my consumer, the Gen Z will listen. The millennials will listen because everyone wants rationale. And at this point in time, the biggest thing is curation. While we cannot blame the market for having too much information and consuming a lot, we as brand owners have to be very curated in what we speak. So I think the defense mechanism of the Ayurvedic owners have to go, brand owners, that, we have to listen and understand and agree with people that yes, we are not performance. And we have to come up with communication which clearly sets the expectations for the users, tells them what this product is going to do, and eventually, sell it. One of the biggest examples, Kumkumadi. It's being beautifully sold by some brands in India and they're doing very well. And VCs like yourself are backing them and they're multi-million-dollar companies. Only because their thesis communication was very clear from the beginning and they were not competing with the performance-based ingredients, right? So that's pretty much it.
To add to his point, I feel trust is there definitely, but there are a lot of misconceptions about Ayurveda over the internet, and people are going to consume a lot of stuff from internet ki ye khaunga to ye ho jayega, ye khaunga to ye ho jayega. As a brand owners, what we all are doing here is awareness. To provide the right kind of awareness about the right set of products, and that is something we are differentiating about Ayurveda apart from all the other brands in the market.
I think trust building, as you said, is a consistent process for any brand, be it Ayurvedic or minus Ayurveda. So it's a constant process. What I believe is lacking is the revolutionization of Ayurveda, skincare especially, because it's always been on the back burner. Like there's some trend that comes in and then it just takes off, and then Ayurveda comes in again and then goes back. So I think we need to bring that revolution kind of a thing where people are interested in trying Ayurvedic products as well.
Anybody else?
Trust in Ayurveda is not a problem. I don't think so.
Not a problem.
But no, not a problem at all. Trust in the brand is a problem.
Yes.
Which is the responsibility of the
Brand.
brand
Yeah,
owners.
yeah.
True, 100%, very well said.
To start a company in the Ayurveda space, do you need to, as a founder, need to read all the texts, which have all the Ayurveda formulations, the knowledge, or do you depend on the Veds and all that you work with, and work with their knowledge? How does that work? I mean,
So in my case, I don't have a background on Ayurveda, and we are actually using two sciences. We are using Jyotish as well as Ayurveda, and we very deeply work with the ecosystem. So whether it is the All India Institute of Ayurveda, we have practitioners from there. We have very very senior practitioners even in Vedic astrology. So we work with that ecosystem, and the idea is to bring the best of knowledge, and in a manner that is understood simply by a large section of people, including me. I'm more of a customer for my business than a practitioner. So the idea is to access the knowledge of people who already have it and deliver it to the man in a manner that is understood. That's my thing, but I think every brand will have their own.
So I personally had a passion for this, so I went ahead and got a diploma before I could even start on Ayurvedic cosmetics. So I think it's good to have.
where was your diploma from?
So it was from a Kerala institute. It was called PV Ayurveda. So I got my diploma from there. So it is really good to have because although I've consulted doctors while preparing my formulations, I totally understand what they're communicating to me, and based on that, I can make decisions on what to go and what ingredient not to go in my formulation. So I think it's definitely good to have.
So I think to answer that, every brand owner has a certain onus of starting a brand, right? As you rightly said that, is it required or anyone can do it? What I believe that the entry barrier for starting an Ayurveda or a pharmaceutical company for the last 50 years is not that big, right? Pharmaceutical used to function in a way कि आपके पास बद्दी में माल बनता था, आप उठाते थे, आप डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स को देते थे, डॉक्टर्स को देते थे, आरएक्स जाता था, और जैसे ही आपका हेड ऑफ सेल्स वहां से अलग हो जाता था, वो अपनी कंपनी शुरू कर लेता था, राइट? आयुर्वेदा में भी सिमिलर हो रहा है, बट आई थिंक एज ब्रांड ओनर्स इट इज 100% अ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टू नो वॉट यूर बिल्डिंग, बिकॉज you should be convinced of what you produce, because it's mass market, it's going to go to people, and if anything goes wrong, it's 100% your responsibility. When I started, I read the whole of Nigantu, Charak Samhita. I have personally gone down to Balindu Prakash ji, who's the only patent holder in an Ayurvedic medicine in the world. एंड मैंने उनसे जाकर बोला सर दीक्षा तो दोगे नहीं आप, बिकॉज आप लोग का तो अलग सिस्टम है, बट मेरे को आई वुड लव टू इंटरेक्ट विद यू. मैं interacted with so many doctors, and what I realized is कि उनका passion, they're unsung heroes, and people like us can come out and put their content out, and that's what we've been doing constantly, and I think everyone in the room also has. Just one quick example, बहुत सारे ब्रांड्स है अर्चना जो उठाकर माल चाइना से लाकर यहाँ बेच के बड़े बन गए, बट एक प्लेटो के बाद वो नहीं कर पा रहे बिकॉज सब्जेक्ट मैटर एक्सपर्ट नहीं है. There's a friend of mine who's just raised funds, and I always tell her name's Rimjim, she runs a brand called Little Box. मैं उसको हमेशा बोलता हूँ तू फैशन में शायद बेहतर कर लेगी because your passion stands for fashion, right? जो पैशनेट कैटेगरीज होती है ना, जहाँ पे आप बिल्ड करते हो, फाउंडर हैवी कंटेंट जाता है, और फाउंडर अगर ऑथेंटिक और ऑनेस्ट नहीं है तो वो भी कम्युनिकेट हो जाता है. तो व्हाट आई बिलीव इज कि फाउंडर का एक बैकग्राउंड होना बहुत जरूरी है. नहीं तो बिल्ड करो. इन द लास्ट 3 years आई हैव बिल्ट इट. इफ आई कैन डू इट, आई एम नॉट स्मार्ट इनफ, एनीवन कैन डू इट, राइट? Eventually it will pay off is what I believe, right? You don't have to be a doctor. You can have a board of doctors, an ethical committee, exactly like how a pharmaceutical works. But then as a founder, you should know what you're communicating. And with the new laws coming in, people are now required to submit their medical
Oh, really?
Yes, now the influencers are asked that if you want to promote a certain product, आप क्या authority से वो बोल रहे हो? Now all of a sudden the gym people, right, they don't have वो creatine नहीं बेच रहे हैं, they're only doing whey proteins because creatine comes under the nutraceuticals. इंडिया में एक्ट है DMR एक्ट जो heavily बोलता है claim नहीं कर सकता, and it's getting very aggressive. It's a very good time for Ayurveda. I think persistence है, market बन रहा है. अगले 3 साल में informed, educated founders who make educated content for people who want to get educated will be the ones who will make it.
In my case, I feel I have a leverage as I mentioned, I belongs from a business class family with over 20 years old legacy. But आप कुछ भी start नहीं कर सकते at a starting point. Otherwise, we end up becoming a Me Too brand as many others. In my particular case, my dad has a 45 years of experience in practicing Ayurveda. During COVID, I left my job to be in the Ayurveda space. But I took 1 year to figure out ki what needs to be created, which can be built at a global scale. And I figured out basically two, three problems in Ayurveda, and that was the starting point for me particularly. I saw a lot of Ayurvedic juices in the market, amla juice, aloe vera, trifla, karela. Those are packed in very bulky sized bottles. Now, one fine day, a consumer visited my dad and saying कि बस बंद कर दो अब नहीं पी सकता मैं इतना कड़वा करेले का जूस. And I realized कि कुछ तो problem है इस product में. And that's how I realized कि Ayurveda में तीन basic problems हैं जो solve की जा सकती हैं. First, Ayurveda takes a lot of time to show results, which means it works on the root cause, but it is slow. Second, Ayurveda is so bitter in taste कि आप उसे रोज पीने में डरोगे. And third is Ayurveda is little hectic. आपको सुबह उठना है, काढ़ा बनाना है, कुछ raw herbs को grind करना है. Usually traditional Ayurveda vets ऐसे ही work कर रहे हैं. And these are the three things which I saw कि ये juices वाले segment में problem है. And these things can be solved out. And effervescent segment एक बहुत promising segment है, but a lot of brands उसमें chemical based effervescents बना रहे हैं.
Yeah.
I figured out कि यार I belongs from a legacy and I have an educational background also in pharma sector. So why not combining both and create a unique product which now belongs from the Ayurveda but in a modern format. And that's how I started this brand. Another thing, I realized कि अब एक product तो बन गया, but किसको बेचे कैसे बेचे. तो I realized कि diabetes एक ऐसी space है जो India is the world's capital of diabetes, everybody know, and 25% of the population is already under the radar of diabetes, which means कि it's the biggest market for the lifestyle problem and can be solved out with the help of Ayurveda, जो शायद एलोपैथी रूट कॉज पे काम नहीं कर सकता. अगर एलोपैथी रूट कॉज पे काम कर रहा होता तो शायद डायबिटीज वर्ल्ड कैपिटल नहीं होती, विच मीन्स कि आयुर्वेदा कर सकता है, बट कम्युनिकेशन और ब्रांड अवेयरनेस करना पड़ेगा, राइट. एंड दैट्स हाउ आई स्टार्टेड बिल्डिंग अ ब्रांड फॉर आयुर्वेदा, स्टार्टेड फ्रॉम आयुर्वेदा एंड नाउ इट इज फॉर डायबिटीज मैनेजमेंट.
Understand.
Well, I don't have education background in Ayurveda, but it's my personal experience that pushed me towards this. I was in total tech for 15, 16 years in US. However, 10 years back, I was diagnosed with fatty liver, which, turned into full-blown diabetes. And I started trying all the gimmicks and obviously metformin day and night, but nothing worked. And it was very visible that, okay, this is something I will have to take for the life. So, and I was not ready to accept it because I had a son who was 1 year old and career was just starting, taking off. So I said, okay, let's see what else I can do. So then I started reading clinical studies, Ayurveda, all the other ways I could educate myself. So it was all self-learning. And after that, I did some courses in sports nutrition and human physiology. So, and I use team of experts because I cannot do everything myself. I have to run the business as well. So I have a team of experts and I keep educating myself, and that's how we build product. And I use my personal experience of recovering and achieving full remission from diabetes and staying in remission for 10 years.
Very nice. Wow.
So we ran Ayurvedic wellness centers for a decade before starting this. So we were associated with the doctors. But as of today, if you ask me, yes, it's always good to have the doctors and the vets on the panel and be associated. There are two things which are absolutely must. One is the chat GPT and the second is the Q question. You just can't do without chat GPT. I mean, that's something which we have.
And that's more important than the vets.
I would say yes.
Oh my God.
I would say yes.
Oh my God.
I would say yes because it is becoming so important. And also curious mind. What are you going to ask? Because ultimately, vet will also tell you what you're going to ask him or
Right.
her. So that if you ask me in the order of preference, yes, ChatGPT number one.
There's an option of hallucination in ChatGPT.
So, when it comes to funding, how do you think that investors are looking at this space? And does it bother you if they're not interested? You want to start?
I think one can always complain. I don't think as a startup we have the luxury of being bothered about investment not coming in. But I think investors are also looking at some kind of, like you mentioned, ROI, which is the main thing. How is the market going to mature, grow? What is the size of market opportunity? I think it's a little vague right now, and investors are just waiting to see how this matures. And I think when it works, it will just work. It will work like a dream. But I think, I think it's going to be a matter of time.
I think if they're seeing your unit economics and they see the ROI like she said, I think there's definitely a possibility that investors will be interested. I don't think there's any doubt in that. Yeah.
I feel even though you got a funding or not, it's possible to build a global business in the space of Ayurveda. It's a high GP business. And in terms of VCs, I feel a lot of brands got a funding in Ayurveda nutraceutical space because it's a blue ocean. कभी market खत्म नहीं होगी इसकी, and it's keep on increasing. Even in global market, US में trend बढ़ता जा रहा है towards Ayurveda. So it's a luck, it's a strategy how someone gets it, and I don't feel this is a challenge to raise funds in this segment. It's possible. It comes with a right strategy, right approach, and right action.
I have a little different point of view. I guess, like you mentioned, the entry barrier is not there. Anybody can, go to ChatGPT, make some formulation, and start a brand. So that's a big concern. That's a big concern. And there is no novelty in it. Everybody knows everything is trending. So again, investor is looking for somebody who can build profitable brand, not just burn for marketing, because burning and growing brand is easy for anybody. So if your product range and if your customer love is there and you have good unit economics and profitable, I guess they would love to support Ayurvedic brand.
I'm going to ask each one of you to give one Ayurvedic tip for the general audience. One Ayurvedic tip. Starting with you.
Yeah, so one tip would be that you need to follow a specific self-care ritual.
Give a specific tip. Like, is there a product or a ingredient that for skincare that you would recommend highly?
Yeah, I would say we could use ghee on this thing, which is really good. I think, and oils, because when people say, ceramides really work, they don't really understand that, you need a layer of the fatty acids for it to really work. So oils deeply penetrate into your skin and give you that glow. Still, I think people are skeptical on applying oils on their face, but I would say go for it.
My grandmother used to put coconut oil on my face.
Yeah, that is a problem.
So grown up with coconut oil.
Coconut oil is comedogenic. It is comedogenic. It will block your pores. So that is where some people are affected because they have breakouts because of.
I've never had pimples.
No, but that's the uniqueness of Ayurveda because it differs from one person to another. It is what will work for you will not work for her or for him. Yeah. And that is the beauty of it. That is why it's so complex and that is so difficult.
One ingredient.
I would say eat when you are happy, eat alone. If you don't have good company, definitely don't eat at a stressful work meeting.
Okay.
I feel right balanced diet with right portion.
One ingredient or one product.
Right. I'm coming to that.
Okay, sorry.
So, right balanced diet is definitely something which everybody needs to follow. Amla is something which is readily available in market, but a lot of us won't use it in our daily lives. If we use it, it acts as an antioxidant and have a very good benefits for our overall health. We keep on avoiding it, but if we start using it, implementing it, it has a good role to maintain our good diet and lifestyle.
1+1 offer.
We'll take it.
Okay. First is turmeric milk is amazing. I mean, it really helped me. Turmeric milk and
दूध में उबाल के.
yes, and if you can add, if you have like calorie deficit or calorie goals, so you can add a little bit of ghee. And second is oil pulling, coconut oil. Both are great.
I think liver is one of the most important parts of the body. There is this product, there's this herb called kalmeg, andrographis.
What is the herb called?
Kalmeg. It's so the world is going crazy after milk thistle because it's again a wave. But there is this product called Kalmeg, which is being used in allopathy, homeopathy, and Ayurveda. Andrographis is the scientific name. Everyone should take it at least for 3 months in a year, make a cycle, and you can use Sukham Kalmeg drops. They're really good. So that's it.
You want to
Yeah,
your
yeah,
food?
I was just saying, I think it's very important to be in tune with your body. Like if you are not happy, if you're sad, it's better to eat very less or eat very light food. Don't eat if you don't feel like. Not eating is never a problem. Overeating is. So it's very important that you enjoy your food. Food should be tasty, delicious, as per your liking, and that will do wonders to your health.
So 1 second. So you're saying that if you eat less or not at all, it's fine.
It's fine. But overeating is what is killing us. Like I mentioned, we are overfed but undernourished.
So in Ayurveda, it said, एक खुराक yogi, दो खुराक भोगी, तीन खुराक रोगी.
Yeah.
Right? So the lesser you eat,
Yeah, but also listen to yourself. Like for some people,
Yeah, it's
3
unique.
meals work. For some people, 2 meals work. For some, happy with one. So yeah, listen to yourself.
I mean, we've heard this growing up, sar or pair tar rehne chahiye. So essentially the crown and the sole of the feet, you should oil them very regularly. I mean, head, obviously hair, everybody cannot oil every day, but whenever you get a chance, do that. But sole of the feet, just before bedtime, just apply a little bit, 3-4 drops of oil and see the wonders.
Wow. I think these tips are very, very useful. Now, this is the point at the table where the tables turn and you guys can ask me questions. I'll, of course, respond on my behalf and Rukum's behalf. But I'll see if there are broader questions for investors in general. Happy to answer. So please.
How do you see Ayurveda space from the investment point of view?
Trust would be the number one thing that the founder has to communicate, and therefore, I think what at least this is our understanding of the space is that because there are like you mentioned that so many different people speaking about it. I think there's one school of Ayurveda in that sense, but it's open to interpretation. So I think the biggest issue I feel for the consumer is who do you trust? So, you mentioned Kumkumadi oil. So the brand that at least I'm aware of who really popularized it from a beauty perspective, they were able to build that trust.
Yes.
It was a premium brand. So, I also use that Kumkumadi oil, though not regularly, but I did use it. So I think trust is where, so as an investor also, for me, I'll have to be able to say, who do I trust? Who can I trust? And I mean, I'm very particular about what I put on my skin. So trust there. But I think with ingestibles, it's even more. And at least at my level, I feel that, most of us also know anecdotally because again, it's been running in our families. So yeah, I mean, my brain is likely to say, just eat the amla. Why do you want to have a amla in pill format or in a, effervescent format or whatever other format there is. So I think trust is the most important thing. And who do you trust amongst the brands that are coming out?
So let's say when we look at from a brand owners or from an investor lens, we look at Ayurvedic, allopathic, homeopathic. But let's say from a customer lens, customer is looking for a solution to his problem.
Absolutely.
If he needs a face wash, he needs a face wash, whether it's an Ayurvedic or an allopathic or whatever. That's a secondary step. So why there is the question that why the investor interest less in Ayurvedic versus, because it's not from the customer point of view.
It's not less. I would have the same question for any brand that is trying to sell, let's say, face wash. So the brands which claim to be modern science based or let's say ingredient first, actives first, I would question them as well. I mean, what is their right to win? I mean, niacinamide, it's there in many, many products, right? And it's also there in products which dermatologists will tell you and recommend that you buy. And then you've got the beauty ones which can advertise. So I would ask the same question there as well, because I think the issue is that every time a new sort of active or a new sort of trend comes in, the question is why. So, I'll give you another example. Like, I think a decade ago, everybody was deficient in vitamin B and vitamin D. And I remember thinking, how is that possible? Like, how is everybody deficient, right? Then I spoke to a doctor that I trust a lot, and he basically explained, and I mean, I questioned the whole vitamin D piece as well. So he explained and he said that it's about how we now, especially in the metros, how we now live. We actively avoid the sun, in every way that we possibly, those of us who can afford to do it. So if you're actively avoiding the sun, I mean, technically outside the window, you can see it's bright sunshine or it's, daylight, but we are not getting it on our skin. And that's why there's a vitamin D deficiency. So what I'm saying is that I think in India, because we are a low trust society, I think a consumer would ask that question about any new brand. And that is where the challenge and the opportunity both lie.
Do you think, if I can articulate the concern from a VC's point of view, it is that we have the least amount of data in Ayurveda performance as compared to the Western
No,
practices?
in fact, actually the performance, not even least amount of data or not. See, we've stayed away from nutraceuticals for the same reason, in a sense that, do you know your vitamin C is working on you? You don't know. There's no external sort of way in which you can tell. Whereas when you put a cream or a face wash, you can tell. So vitamin C, when you have it, or any vitamins or nutraceuticals you have, you can't see immediate outcome, right? And the human mind wants a validation,
Gratification.
verification. So let's say a face wash, I feel, oh, my face is softer, or my skin is looking better, brighter. So, which is why skincare is a little easier sell, and which is why, as consumers, we end up buying a lot more. We'll end up buying jewelry more because you look better. People will comment, "Arey, what a beautiful." You could have vitamin C for the rest of your life. Nobody's going to comment and say, "Oh, you're looking really good because you had vitamin C," right? So, I think efficacy, and that's the reason why human beings don't follow their medicine routine. Also, even when you have a chronic illness or almost even a life-threatening illness, and the doctor tells you that here, I mean, you will see 9 out of 10 patients will first say, "Can you reduce the number of medicine?" And even then, you'll probably take it for a week religiously, but by the second or the third week, you'll start sort of missing. So that's the thing. It's not just about Ayurveda in that sense. And I think that slow life overall is anyway, I mean, when you travel, how do you carry lots of powders if it is in powder format? So, there's also, I mean, you've got to, I think the point where you all started from, trying to modernize it, is important because our lives have become different. And we've got to acknowledge that. I mean, I don't think it's going to be possible to go back to where, our grandparents or generations prior to that lived. I think that would be, I think that's a bit of a pipe dream.
Yeah.
So,
My question is a little different.
yeah.
How do you see a Ayurvedic brand? Just a D2C, a consumer brand, or a full-blown healthcare company?
That is a function of the founder's vision, to my mind. See, to be a healthcare company, again, it goes back to the trust piece. So, we've looked at companies which claim that they're fixing cancer or they're trying to. Now, the problem there is that if at scale, like when you're very, very small and let's say only a few people know about you, I mean, maybe they believe it and maybe it's true also. I mean, I'm starting from the point by saying that let's say the claims are real and, the problem will come when the company starts scaling and starts getting into sort of more people. And if there's a pushback, and that will lead to legal cases saying that these are wrong claims, I was deceived, my money was taken away. So for it to be, and I would say it even from the perspective of, let's say this was modern medicine, I would have the same issue. So today, if a Manjaro or Ozempic is getting marketed, I mean, because they're being marketed by companies that have decades of experience and trust. So people are saying, okay, these are probably safe drugs. Now, whether they are not is a separate issue, and I'm not going to get into that. But what I'm saying is that to be a pharma or a full-blown health care company, including a hospital, is a function of a very high trust part to it. And for that, you need significant amount of money, and you need to start from a point where people already trust you. So, I mean, there's so many new, let's say, hospital chains that have come up in India in the last 20 years. But you can trust them because they're either started by doctors who've got, crazy reputations where people already trust them and believe in them. And they've got clinical practice behind them, decades of clinical practice, or, they've been well-known surgeons. So I think it's also about who starts it and what is the credibility that person enjoys. So I think you mentioned, a very well-known, very highly respected practitioner. Now, if that person were to start it, I think it'd be a different sort of way that people will look at it. So I think it's also about who is doing it and what is the trust that you've been able to communicate. I think that's important.
So it's very interesting you mentioned that, while you were speaking, because while in one sense, yes, Ayurveda is about cure as well. But a very big part of Ayurveda is just about wellness and empowering a person in a way that you don't need any medicines. You don't need any churan, no powder, no supplements, nothing. The science of Ayurveda, which is about wellness, how you live a happy, healthy, long life.
No, I agree with you, and I think now there are some wellness centers that have come up also, which are basing it on Ayurveda, and
Yeah, I mean, and I'm saying you don't even need a center. I'm
no,
saying
but I'm saying it's a starting point, right?
Correct.
I mean, it
It's a
allows you
starting
to
point.
reset. It
it
allows
starts
you
a
to
conversation.
No, it also allows you to reset. Like now, if you were to give me
Right.
a big again, if you look at nutritionists also,
Yeah.
or a dietitian, nobody is able to follow a diet. Because it'll be like your roti should be the size of a katori. Now take a katori, measure that. I mean, it's already over.
No,
I mean,
exactly.
you're not going to do
Exactly.
it, right? So the thing is, if you're leading and if you have certain habits, see, it's very hard to break habits.
Correct.
So,
Absolutely.
These wellness centers, I think one thing they allow you to do is it helps you reset it, which is why they'll typically tell you that anything less than 3 days or 7 days, we
Correct.
won't accept.
14 days actually.
Yeah. So, and I think that's a good thing because you do need to completely understand you can live like this. And it does take time for your body and your mind to accept it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think wellness is important. But again, where is that source? Who is telling you that this is a better way to live?
No, now
matters?
for example, just to complete on that point, just for an example, like you said, diets are so restricting or so constraining that you don't want to follow that. Suppose now there is some science-backed advice that says that you don't need to look at any portion. You don't need to be obsessed about calories or this much or this size or whatever. You just need to eat whatever you like, as diverse as possible, and just follow the seasons or your body type. You will be happy because you won't need to then constantly think about, oh my God, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? That person is saying
But you'll be
something else.
surprised how uncomfortable human beings are with this very broad, because then it's so open to interpretation. What is my body type? What is the season? The reason human beings like certain sort of, things to be laid out for them is you don't want it entirely left to each person.
Correct. So awareness, and somebody translating that awareness to you.
Somebody has to do that work.
Yeah,
and
correct.
it has to be a trusted source.
Correct.
I mean, I may think X is more trustworthy,
Absolutely.
and somebody else may. So, who is that collective and the fountain of that wisdom that a large number of people. So, coming back to my example of these GLP-1 drugs, is that because it's been bought by companies which enjoy trust, so doctors will prescribe it, people will automatically think, yeah, and it doesn't leave it to too much interpretation. So I think human beings also do like structure. They want to be told.
Of course.
Also, one
And we are brought up like this. Ki if the child doesn't want to eat, you'll be told like breakfast ko khana hi khana hai. lunch to khana hi khana hai, you know. So there are lots of these. So somebody has to really gain that trust for everybody to say, okay, now we'll move to this way of living.
So just one thing, Archana, and this is just food for thought, right? You are also building your thesis on Ayurveda.
No, I'm not building my thesis. See, my thesis is a function of my interaction with founders, not the
Sure,
other way around.
100%, 100%. So just as far as I could collect, and just to recap this, and just one small understatement that I'd like to make, it's the founder, it's the communication, it's the trust source, yes. I have had this opportunity of working with a brand called Tynor, which is into orthopedics. I used to head marketing for them. There was a point in time where orthopedics was seen as support was seen as a full-fledged scam, right? Physiotherapists were seen as incapable people. There was a time when psychologists were seen as incapable people. And there were only a few brands that came in, gave the right product for the right problem, because people searched problems and it changed, right? So, we have had successes like Kesh King in the past. We have had people like Wellbeing, Clicks, Fasten Up doing amazing job with all of these problems still in picture, only because the founder market fit and the product market fit both were there. So what I right now see the market as is that a lot of VCs are not able to see that, and that is why the whole clutter is being.
No, I think that's an unfair statement. Look, I mean, again, I see this very frequently to founders. Don't assume that VCs don't know what they're doing. So it's not about clutter. See, it's our job to cut through the clutter.
Yes.
And nobody is saying that nobody's ever going to invest in Ayurveda. The question is, if there are 100 companies getting built in Ayurveda, first of all, there isn't that much capital available. Let's start from there. So obviously, 100 companies are not going to be funded by VCs. Maybe there are other ways that those companies will get capitalized, and that's also okay. I mean, it's not VC's job to fund every company that gets built in anywhere in the world, right? And I don't think I'm saying, or any investor is saying, that we won't look at Ayurveda. Ayurveda has got funded. It's not that it hasn't got funded. All I'm saying is that to the question that I was asked about, and my answer was that it doesn't matter if anything in health and wellness. I mean, I would be careful about any health and wellness, or any even skincare. Like, the point I'm making is that everything, because when a founder comes, the first thing is, why should I be buying even a face wash or a body cream from this company? Yeah? I mean, HUL already exists. I mean, there's so many companies that have already won my trust. So why should I be looking at another? So that would be a question across categories. It's not specific to Ayurveda. That's the point I made earlier. That it'll be always about trust, because when you want something so close to you, whether it's the food you eat, again, I mean, we don't go and eat just anywhere, right? Even when you go to a restaurant, you trust that restaurant. Now, it could be for taste, it could be for hygiene, it could be for service, it could be for the overall ambience and experience. But it's based on trust. No? You don't go and give your money just to anybody. So I don't think it's about that VCs are not seeing the opportunity. It's about it's upon the founder.
That's what I was trying to say. That it's the opposite. It's the founders have to make sure that VCs see that.
That's true for anybody.
Any business.
Is
exactly.
what I'm saying.
Exactly.
I'm not saying it's specific to this business.
But yeah, ingestibles is a concern.
Anything. I'm saying even something I put on my face. I mean, if you poll all the women in this room, or even the men in this room.
Yes.
They will have certain regimens that they followed, and the reasons, they'll have very cogent reasons for it. So that's how human beings are. I mean, if I buy a pair of apparel, something that it will be a brand that I'll go to because I trust that brand. Again, it could be quality, it could be style, fit, whatever. Again, so trust is actually the nucleus of how you build a large company. Irrespective of which category it's in. Anyway, any more questions? One for the road? Okay. So now that we don't have any more questions, I'm going to close this lovely table. I think there was some laughter, which is always nice to have on the table. And I want to thank all of you for coming and joining me on Startup Table with AJ. And I would request all you lovely viewers to please encourage us and the founders who join us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Thank you.